Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Coffee with Craig. I am here in Las Vegas for SHOT. Looking forward to having a good time over the next day or so, kind of talking with folks. For my friends from Arms Room Radio, unfortunately, I was not able to make it Irish Coffee with Craig, but I do still have my coffee, so here we go. All right, today we're going to talk about, our favorite thing, the thing we love to talk so much about, and that would be gun control. And we're gonna actually talk about a survey that was done by the premier expert on firearms and firearms issues, the New York Times. Right, I know you're laughing. I know you're laughing. You get the joke. Anyway, so what happened was the New York Times decided they wanted to get an idea of what people thought of gun, of what the quote-unquote experts thought of gun control. What were the most effective means of gun control, and then they did a survey of then they did a poll of folks to find out what was the most popular. And what they wanted to do was, in their eyes, they wanted to do kind of a cross section to see, okay, which of the most popular forms of gun control or violation of our rights that would also be very, very popular. Now, what's interesting, first and foremost, about this is the fact that the people who were deemed to be quote unquote experts, well, none of them really included firearms experts. They're all people who basically are in one way or another, run an organization or part of an organization, or who study how to take guns from law-abiding citizens. That's pretty much what their shtick is. So when they went and they looked at the various different things, they included social scientists, lawyers, probably from like the Brady campaign and from Everytown, public health officials, and we all know what most, with the exception of Doctors for Responsible Gun Ownership, we all know what most public health officials, we all know what they largely think of the Second Amendment, or at least those who come out publicly. We know what they think, and then a handful of law enforcement. Now, mind you, if you're gonna talk to someone, if you want to do a survey, first of all, survey is a very bad way to try and get information, because a survey is basically, it depends on who you survey. If you go to Dallas, Texas, and you survey the average person walking out of Texas Stadium and ask them who's going to win the Super Bowl, well, with the exception of yesterday, they probably would tell you the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, I'm sorry, too soon? Okay, yeah, yes, I'm a Cowboy fan. Anyway, so first of all, you're talking to people who already have their minds made up. Now, these also are not people who have any knowledge or understanding of actual application of the law. In other words, this isn't law enforcement. Now, the law enforcement that they surveyed actually had a very, very different perspective. Now, first of all, if you go to the article, what you'll notice about it is that every item but one they deemed to be effective. Now, the question is how effective it was, or whether or not it was ineffective was a little different, but everything that was included on the list they deemed to be somewhat effective when it came to reducing crime. Now, once again, based on absolutely nothing except their opinions. But the other thing that was interesting is that they noted, and at least they tried to note, that every single one of the people that they polled, they said, well, they all wildly support gun control. Now, a more scientific poll that was done by CNN found that 52% of Americans oppose stricter gun laws. That means the majority of Americans do not believe that guns are the problem. It's not the guns in gun violence, it's the violence. Because if it weren't gun violence, it'd be knife violence, it'd be car violence, it'd be in some way they would be trying to find a way to be violent. And quite frankly, as we all know, those who want to be violent, or those who are to a point where they're willing to commit a crime and be violent, they don't care about the law. So they're going to get their hands on a firearm. But then, even amongst them, and when you look at, and this is the interesting thing, so you look at the subset of them. So they believe that everything is good. So what did they believe amongst all of their solutions was the least effective? That's the thing you got to look at, because you figure even if they're weighted all the way over that way, even amongst them, they have an opinion about what may or may not be effective. And For them, the least effective, assault weapons bans, gun-free zones, locking up guns or requiring guns in homes to be stored and locked away, basically made useless, and gun buyback programs. Those are the things that they deem to be the most ineffective. Now, what did they deem to be the most effective? Obviously, background checks, and barring the mentally ill from having access to firearms. Interestingly, law enforcement. Now, what they also did was they actually took out some of the data specifically to law enforcement. Now, mind you, they said that, oh yeah, we included amongst all of these people that were involved, we included law enforcement. But yeah, less than 100 people that they actually surveyed were actually law enforcement. But amongst them, they agreed that supporting stricter penalties for gun crimes. Let's see. We want someone to not do a crime. Why don't we make sure they do the time? Common sense? I know, not that common. Stricter gun penalties, banning mentally ill from being able to own or possess firearms, and national reciprocity. Basically, citizens actually being able to carry in different states, basically making it easier for individuals to be able to defend themselves. I've always said that in general, law enforcement has a much more friendly view of the Second Amendment, largely believing that individuals do have the right to keep and bear arms. I can't necessarily say the same for most police chiefs or most law enforcement labor unions, or at least the people who represent them in the California legislature, because they've pretty much supported every gun ban, restriction, limitation that's come up before the California legislature. So anyway, all of this is to say this, that even amongst the gun experts, or the gun control experts, the people who we know have no idea about firearms, even amongst them, you can find a nugget of truth to find out. Even they agree with us that some of these things that they're doing just are not effective. Now, they're popular, and that's what it is. One of the things they pointed to was, one of the things that was really popular amongst their survey was the banning of semi-automatic firearms. What they did not do was ask the average person, do you know what a semi-automatic firearm is? And if so, what is it? Because I'm willing to bet that the average person cannot tell you what semi-automatic means. Now, I don't need you guys to tell me because I know you know. I'm just telling you that probably the average person does not know what semi-automatic means. Basically what that means, folks, it means one trigger squeeze, one round. Anyway, so that's it. That's my thoughts on it. Let's see what you folks have to say. How many folks are any of you folks coming down here to SHOT? Do you plan on, if so, what do you guys plan on doing? What do you guys plan on doing? Are you going to hang out here the entire time? The hard part for me in SHOT is that, I come here and I get to see all of the stuff that, that we don't get to have here in California. I know, yeah, and the rest of the nation, you guys kind of laugh at us, but that's okay. That's okay. We're going to have our fun eventually. Eventually, we will get our rights back here in the state of California. All right, here we go. What are folks saying? Yeah, unfortunately, hotel internet is relatively slow, but that's okay. I'll get it done. I'm not a technical expert, but I did sleep at a Holiday Inn Express last night. Let's see. Here we go, Marty. This is why all gun owners, we must teach our children to respect and the requirement that all citizens own firearms. I don't know that I would want to require all citizens to own firearms, but what I would want to do is I would require people to learn about firearms. In other words, know what they are, know how they work, know how they function, understand that it's not something to be feared, but it is something to be respected. How to handle a firearm, how to know or to be able to determine whether or not it's loaded, and basically teach people that. That's something that I believe is vitally important that used to take place. It used to be people learned about how to respect a firearm. That doesn't happen anymore. And obviously, interestingly, firearm safety was also very low on the experts totem pole. Laws only apply to the law-abiding. That's why more gun laws don't work. That is exactly true. I mean, especially if you're actually not going to enforce, if you're not going to enforce the laws. Passing laws that are going to go against law-abiding citizens doesn't really help, especially if those laws are going to be confusing and make it so that the average individual has such a hard time keeping up that eventually they're just going to say, forget it. You know what? I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And, you know, if I wind up dealing with the law enforcement, I'll wind up dealing with law enforcement. Most libs are mentally ill, but what do I know? Well, you know that most of them are mentally ill. At least you know that. We need to start making PSAs to help create positive public images about guns and gun owners. You know, a big part of what we try to do with the Firearms Policy Coalition is, you know, for those who are interested in supporting the Second Amendment, we try to demystify the political process. But also in general for the public, we try to demystify firearms to help people to better understand firearms and firearms policy. Because, you know, when you hear people, for example, in California say we need stricter gun control, and then you start hearing the things that they want to do, you want to say, yeah, no, that's already illegal. Yeah, no, in California, yeah, no, you already can't do that. Yeah, no, you already can't do that. Haven't been able to do it for quite a while. So a lot of times, you know, they're thinking, well, we just need more gun control, and they're not even thinking about what is actually the law and what actually exists. People hate California gun owners and tell us we need to just leave the state. We're told not to follow unjust laws. You know, I really do believe that yes, there are people who don't like gun owners, no matter what state you're in, but there are probably more of them in California. But in the end, most of it, a big part of the people who vote for a lot of this stuff just don't know. They don't know. And these are very, especially when you start getting into the details of some of these laws, they're very complicated. And if you don't understand the technology or the industry or the culture, and you just have a fear of firearms, and then you put on top of it the fact that most of these people making laws don't even really understand law, it makes for very, very bad bedfellows. It makes for very, very bad policy. I was always told, you know, there's two things you don't want to see being made: policy and sausage. I've seen the worst of the worst, so I'll go to a sausage factory any day. How do we become a member? What does your membership pay for? That is a very good question. Not that I'm going to use this as a recruiting thing, but you just go to firearmspolicy.org and click the join button. In essence, you know, Firearms Policy Coalition, we are an advocacy group. We advocate in California, now Nevada, Oregon, Washington. We're basically focusing largely on state legislatures. We also do some national stuff. But we're really focusing because we recognize that what's happening is Bloomberg and those folks, they're now focusing on the states because they know they're not going to get what they want in Washington, D.C. You look at, in particular on the West Coast, they're building what's called a West Coast wall of gun control. And so what you send us basically goes towards advocacy, working in the state legislatures. It goes towards communication because, you know, we believe, you know, utilizing things like new media, like Facebook and Twitter and email and all of that, utilizing new media and new technology to help engage people, to help engage you in the process so that you understand when these bills are introduced, who introduced them, what they do, and the impact that they'll have, and who you need to contact and how you need to contact, making it easier for you guys to be able to contact them to let them know how you feel about it. And, you know, even though stuff is passed in California, I can tell you this, we've killed almost twice as many bills as actually become law. So, and it's very effective, and we work very hard, and we work very closely with the other Second Amendment advocacy groups here in California and in the other states. So, anyway, that's what your membership goes to pay for. Check us out at firearmspolicy.org, and that'll give you a better idea of what we do and how we do it. Anyway, that's going to be it for today's Coffee with Craig. You guys take care, and I hope you have a very relaxing Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. Take care. Goodbye.
If you like these updates, please share them with your friends and subscribe to our YouTube channel.